Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. We're going to cover everything. We're going to cut through all the propaganda, give it to you straight from left, right, and center. The opinions are what counts. Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and happy Sunday to all our viewers and listeners. Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a very special guest coming on today because the subject of the day is let's talk about money, because a lot of it is freezing up for the Democratic Party. I'd like to welcome Larry Ward to the show. Larry, happy to have you with me today. And boy, we can talk about some money based upon your background.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. And yeah, we are in a weird spot, aren't we? This is uncharted territory. We've never had a presidential candidate in this position where there's a legitimate threat to throw him off the nomination, and in complete disarray. If he stays, he's going to lose. I think everybody knows that. The Democratic Party knows that. But what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Are they going to get rid of the guy who got 14 million votes when they've been talking about protecting democracy for the last 5-10 years?
Larry, let me ask you this. Give our viewers some background. You've been involved in politics for a long time. You've run political action committees. You're involved with fundraising for President Trump. But talk to our viewers, and then we'll sort of dive into the issues where they got your background here.
Yeah, sure. I've been in marketing for the last 30 years. 20 in conservative politics, conservative political marketing, and we've been helping candidates, causes, organizations, media companies grow. We actually help and work with about 25 to 50% of the conservative media market today. So we help in a lot of different ways, primarily, like I said, in the digital side. So whether it's helping them with their digital strategies, website, ad production, and email marketing, and that type of thing.
Larry, let me ask you this. When Biden did his presser after the NATO meeting, he made reference, he's got $224 million in the bank. But a startling thing came out on Friday, $90 million of commitments that major Democratic donors had made. All of a sudden, those were decommitted. I mean, basically, the funds are not going to the Biden campaign. Larry, you've raised money. I mean, if this isn't a red flag for the Democratic Party, I don't know what is.
It is a red flag. I don't think it's as serious as it sounds. Look, there's a lot of people who pledge money, and they pledge it. Maybe they get in the media. Whether they come through with it or not is a different discussion. It's a lot of money that donors are absolutely going to withhold, and for a couple of different reasons. It's not just because they're angry at Joe Biden. They're going to withhold some of this cash because it essentially locks the money. So if you give it to Joe Biden, he is now limited. If he leaves the race, that money is now limited to either the Biden campaign, Kamala Harris campaign, or if Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, whoever's controlling the funds at that time, choose to return that money to the DNC, then the DNC can do something with it with the next candidate. But it's not guaranteed. Joe Biden, if for example they kick him off, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, if they don't choose Kamala Harris and they're both not on board, they can essentially hold that money hostage, and
Wow.
and it would basically completely and utterly bankrupt the Democratic Party. They wouldn't be able to do anything with that $220 million that Biden was bragging about during his press conference. So, that's a lot of money. The $90 million in pledges is a lot of money. But really, what they're doing is they're holding out not only for Joe Biden to get out, but they're also holding to make sure that money doesn't get locked up. For the next candidate.
Yeah, makes sense because things still are so much in flux. I mean, as you stated when we first started the show, I have never seen a situation where the Democratic Party is literally going up against their own nominee. Now, a lot of people say, well, Mark, we saw this back in 1968, ironically, in Chicago, Lyndon Johnson, Hubert Humphrey. But that was a completely different situation. That happened back in March of 1968. We're sitting here within 30 days of the Democratic convention, Larry. And I mean, to say that the knives were put back after that Biden NATO summit, I don't think so. I mean, we started with the debate a couple weeks ago, the absolute disaster. They tried taking cover with George Stephanopoulos. That blew up in their face. Then they literally did radio interviews, and it later came out after the interviews they had fed the questions to the interviewers, and Biden obviously was given a heads up on it. One of those radio hosts got fired, and the other one certainly was a journalistic violation. And then the campaign had to backtrack on that. And then obviously Joe Biden got in his comfort zone at the NATO conference. But Larry, this over the top praise by some liberal commentators to try to stem the bleeding, I don't think it worked, because four additional congressmen came out after the the presser, three of them on Thursday, one on Friday. It was up to like 18 Democrats. Members of Congress now are saying he's got to step aside. One senator has said that. Larry, how do you handicap this right now? Because this literally is an implosion, and there's people, well-known media types, who are Democrat allies. I'm surprised that they've been able to hold the dam together at this point.
Well, they're not even trying to anymore. Look, CNN is basically 24/7 get Joe Biden out of office. MSNBC is a little more 50-50, but the media moguls have given not only the permission but the directive to get Joe Biden out of office, because they know that he has zero chance to beat Donald Trump. But all the things that you said earlier, none of it is new. Biden's been
No.
feeding questions to the media forever. Biden's been telling the media what you can and can't say. Biden was scolding the media because they weren't covering his presidency as glowing as he wanted them to. That's net. I
Right.
mean, can you imagine Trump? Can you imagine Katie McInerney or Sarah Huckabee Sanders or Sean Spicer coming out and saying, "Listen, you're not covering the Trump administration the way we told you to. Now do better." But what's funny is when they said that for the Biden administration, they did better. They actually, covered the Biden administration exactly the way they were told. They were given questions in the past. There were press conferences where Biden was actually, had his index cards, and he goes, "Yeah, my next question is from this person, and it's this question, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it." I mean, it was so scripted. The media was complicit. Look, they are freaking out because here's what happened. The American public, or their perception was that the American public saw a side of Joe Biden that they had never seen before. And
Right.
because the Democratic Party, and I include the media in that, the mainstream media, it's the same group. The Democratic Party thinks that the American people are stupid and can't make judgments of their own, and they believe that they were cheap fakes, and all of a sudden they were exposed as liars, and they were exposed as propagandists, and they said, "Oh no, we have to get him out now." But the poll numbers haven't really shifted. So what that tells you is all of that was already baked in, because the American people already knew Joe Biden was a frail, weak old man.
Larry, who's calling the shots in the White House right now? I mean, when they did this debate a couple weeks ago, I've heard people theorize that, well, they did it so early because they knew he was going to screw up and that would give them time to get a new candidate in there. I mean, you and I both know this from being around Washington. Nothing happens by accident in that town. Hakeem Jeffries had to give the green light to these 17, 18 House members who were basically saying they're not going to support him. And folks, these are not backbenchers. I mean, Jim Himes, who came out after the NATO presser, he's not a backbencher. Now, some of the others are. You may not have heard of them, but when you get up to a point where you have 18, and then senators lopping on top of the media, I mean, Larry, is it a foregone conclusion that it's just a matter of time before he exits? Because you're hearing words out there right now about congressmen, senators are very ticked off that Biden, quote, didn't disclose his health issues when conservative media has been talking about it literally for the last 2 years.
Oh, for the last 10 years. Biden was campaigning from his basement. They could not take him out. I mean, I did a parody video of Kamala Harris called the Kamala Club. We did little boy George, Kama Chameleon, and I had a clip of Joe Biden falling asleep on an interview with Hillary Clinton, and poked a little fun at it. Look, he has been a weak, frail old man. This is a little bit of senior abuse, although I hear a lot of people in in the business that are conservatives, that are good-hearted people, and they say they feel terrible. They feel sad for Joe Biden. I do not feel sad for Joe Biden. Joe Biden is an evil man. He's a terrible father. He's an awful president. He's a corrupt individual. And, just because, the world is imploding around him doesn't make me feel like it's any better. But yes for the question. I'm going to answer it. Where do we go from here? Is Joe Biden going to survive this? It's up to Joe Biden. It really is. Almost all the cards are in Joe Biden's hands. So there are a couple of different ways that this can play out. One, Joe Biden resigns. That's the cleanest, easiest. That's really what the Democrats want. They want Joe Biden. They wanted him to come out yesterday, I bet. That's why it was late, because there was a lot of pressure saying, Joe, just use this as an opportunity to step down gracefully. And Joe went out and did his, his big boy presser, trying to pretend like he was trying to pretend like he was on the Wolf of Wall Street saying, I'm not going anywhere, but nobody cheered, but that was Joe Biden's moment. And he said, I'm not leaving. And he was very clear about it. So they still can get him to step aside. I don't think that that's going to happen. The second option is, wait till the convention and take what Joe Biden said at the conference, when he said he was that he was going to give the delegates the opportunity to come out and say, you could vote for who you want. Well, maybe they take him up on his word and they change that there. That's another option. The third option is the 25th. That's a little messier.
Larry, we're going to do this. We're going to break here for 90 seconds. But when we come back, Larry and I are going to explore some of these alternatives, things that have been bandied about, and we're going to really dive into what's practical and what's not practical.
Sounds rolling. All three cameras. We're good.
Good.
Is there any regrets that you have in life? I should sit here and say, yeah, I got a lot of regrets. But when I look back on my life and I understand the lives that were lost, I mean, I'm sitting here with you. And I can tell my story.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
Brilliant military career, serving 33 years.
Why was he being so elusive?
Mike Flynn told the truth and faced life in prison.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn, one of America's most treasured military heroes. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Go to Patriot TV, click on Store, and grab a once-in-a-lifetime chance to own a treasured piece of American history. And get your own personal download link to watch America's most talked about movie, as well as a DVD hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store. Incredible savings and a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
And we're back. Larry, you were mentioning right before the break, you threw out three scenarios there. The 25th Amendment, I don't think there's a snowball's chance Kamala Harris is going to invoke that, and nor do I think the rest of the cabinet would. But the other alternatives could happen. But as you correctly said, contrary to what all the media people, House Democrats, and the donor class are stating, it really is going to boil down to Biden. And here, Larry, here's the question I have. The Republican National Convention starts on Monday. Remarkably, Donald Trump has sat back and been incredibly disciplined while all this has been going on. And yet people are saying, well, on Monday, the spotlight's going to shift and it's all going to be on the Republicans. I'm not buying that yet, because if Joe Biden maintains his insistence, yes, the RNC is going to be covered. But Larry, am I off base here thinking that Joe Biden's shadow will be hovering over that convention, particularly maybe on the first couple nights of it, Monday, Tuesday? And is that a good thing for Donald Trump?
Well, here's what I think is going to happen. But before I get into that, let me just talk about the 25th, because it is an option, and they can go down that road. But it's messy and complicated, and here's how. So if Joe Biden doesn't want to step down and they want to use the 25th, someone's got to invoke it. Like you said, Kamala Harris has to invoke it, and then the cabinet's got to go along with it. But Joe Biden can say, "I'm staying." They can't remove him on their own. So if he says, I'm staying, I'm not getting out, then what happens is it goes to Congress, and they need, 2/3 of the vote to remove him. So what they need is Republican support. And unfortunately, sometimes they call the Republican Party the stupid party. And we'll have to see if they've learned anything, because the stupid party would throw Biden out of office. The smart party, if they really are smart, they will vote down the 25th Amendment and make the Democrats live with Joe Biden. And not only that, look, if they come out and say, well, he's now a danger to the country, we got to get rid of him. Well, no, he's been a danger to the country for 3.5 years. We can wait another 6 months to remove him. And that's got to be the Republican posture. We got to be unified on that and completely stick Joe Biden up the Democrats' rear. That's where he belongs, and that's what should happen with the 25th. But what you were saying about the convention, yes, Trump has been very disciplined. In my opinion, Trump's always disciplined. He says things that get people all, discombobulated, the mean tweets, the whole 9 yards. He does everything for a purpose. He wants to drive the conversation in one direction. He's not just going out there, sometimes he goes out there and he'll write something just reactionary, but for the most part, everything he does is disciplined and thought out. Now, in terms of the convention, he has the greatest opportunity next week. And I mean the greatest opportunity to ignore Joe Biden and what the Democrats are doing. I mean, almost completely ignore it. Don't talk about it. You can talk about policy, whatever, but to almost in a Reagan-esque way, lay out his vision, lay out his 20 points, in the Republican platform, and show America as the shining city on the hill where we can make America great again. Be 100% positive about and loving the country and hugging the flag and high-fiving Americans, and bring some positivity into this momentum, because there hasn't been. Since 2016, they've been attacking him, and he hasn't had a chance to lay out a positive vision. He can lay out a positive vision and completely capture the vote in a way that no other competitor can come in and beat him.
I think that is excellent advice, and I couldn't have said it better myself, Larry, because he is going to have this is his convention. Okay, I mean, there is no ambiguity. There's no one at his coattails. The people who are anti-Trump aren't going to be any part of this. And who's better on television than Donald Trump? I mean, some people can't stand him, but you have to admit the guy is a ratings magnet. And there will be our side that will show up because they want a coronation of Donald Trump. I guarantee you there's going to be Democrats watching this ticked off because they don't have a candidate that has that type of magnetism. And I think My gut feeling, Larry, tells me this is going to be played well. They are going to take your advice. They don't need to be criticizing Joe Biden. And the piece you talked about a few minutes ago, where you said, if it ever came to the 25th, just let him sit there. Make sure he stays the nominee. I think that's great advice. So I love the Reagan-esque ideas. Keep it positive. His vice president, I guess, is going to be named on Wednesday, or it has to be named by Wednesday, and then Trump's going to speak on Thursday. The betting markets are all over the place. It was Governor Burgum, then Marco Rubio. Now the betting's about even on J.D. Vance. How are you seeing the VP stakes, Larry? And what will really fire up the base of the Republican Party and have Trump come out of this convention getting the traditional post-convention bounce, even though 90+% of voters have already made up their mind?
I think it could be none of the above. You see, this part of Trump, he is completely unpredictable. Mike Pence came out of nowhere. No one was talking about Mike Pence as vice president. No one. It was the right pick for that election. It wasn't the right pick as it turned out on January 6th, unfortunately. But Mike Pence was the right pick. It helped kind of settle all the Christian conservatives down. It was what was needed in 2016. But in terms of who he's going to pick, it's going to be the right pick. But it doesn't necessarily need to be anybody's talking about. It could be Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It could be Ben Carson, who I absolutely love. He was the only reason I think Ben Carson is a real contender is because he was the only one in the cabinet who remained truly loyal to Trump, and Trump remembers that. And he's a brain surgeon. He would eat Kamala Harris or whoever the vice president's lunch is going to be. And he could run the country. But there are other candidates out there. I don't have a favorite. I just trust Donald Trump. He's going to pick the right guy, someone who can run the country and who's going to help him win this race.
Well, I'm going to throw another name out there. Your Governor Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. I mean, isn't his approval rating pretty high in the state of Virginia?
He's done a great job. And the only thing I would say about Governor Youngkin is, part of me wants to see him on the ticket, be good. The other part of me says I don't want to lose him as a governor, So he's been a great governor here, and he's kept almost all of his promises, and it's been very nice to see. The other dark horse, I'm going to throw it out there. A lot of people said it could never happen. I actually started this political cycle with a campaign that said we want Don Ron, that we want Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump to run as a ticket. And a lot of people said that could never happen. They're probably right. But Ron DeSantis, I think, would make an incredible vice president. And if Ron DeSantis is working that angle, he will be an incredible vice president, and he may spend 12 years in the White House.
I love that idea because I'm a huge Ron DeSantis fan, being a Florida resident. And let me give you a couple, and you probably already know this, Larry, but when Ron DeSantis won his second term, Palm Beach County used to be blue. Ron DeSantis flipped Palm Beach County to solid red. He also, Dade County could vote both ways, solid red. Dade County's Miami, Palm Beach County is obviously Palm Beach. Ron DeSantis ran up a huge margin of victory. You know what? That to me would be just an exceptional ticket. I mean, what we just described here, Larry, is, Democrats brag about their deep bench. I'm not sure how deep it is, but we really do have a deep bench on our side. Because the names that you mentioned already, plus, boy, if Ron DeSantis was on that ticket, I think Trump maybe picks up a 4 or 5 point lead. I say that enthusiastically, but I think the same thing, whether it's any of the other names that we've picked or someone we haven't even mentioned. I'm in your camp. I trust that Donald Trump's going to make the right pick for VP, and I think the convention's going to be very happy. Now let's fast forward to Thursday night. Assuming that Joe Biden is still on the Democratic ticket, whether he is or isn't, that focused positive message, Larry, I think that's a big deal because Republicans talk about the economy, the border, crime. What are Democrats talking about? Abortion. Trump's a threat to democracy. January 6th. I mean, a certain part of the population, yeah, they get the abortion issue. But Trump has come out and basically softened the stance of the Republican Party to basically say, no, this is a state issue. Talk about the issues here, Larry, and what are the key pieces that you want to see issue-wise at that convention?
Like you just said, the economy. We want to talk about, we want to talk about all the great programs that Trump put into place in 2016. But you also got to talk about what he's going to do in 2025. Look, Trump's 20 points is incredible, and I am a big fan of Project 2025. I know the Democrats have kind of looked at it and try to beat it up, but and Trump's trying to distance himself from it. But the truth is, it's a great program, and not only not forget the policy positions. They're heritage policy positions. Let's be real clear. They're good policy positions. The left is kind of just lying about it, so don't worry about what they're saying. But Project 2025 is the most important thing is personnel as policy. And what Heritage and Project 2025 has done is they've collected and vetted thousands of candidates to take those positions in government. When Trump won in 2016, he started 2017 with Reince Priebus as his chief of staff, and he started with a cabinet full of rhinos because he goes, oh, I don't have anybody to hire. I don't know who's good and bad. Well, Project 2025, what they did is they came together and said, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. So we're going to collect all of these resumes so that the president and the White House, incoming White House, can have a pool of candidates that we think are the right candidates for the positions that they need to hire. And then you have a guy, a vice president, who should be focused on nothing but firing the entire deep state. That's what I think the role of the vice president should be. Going out and absolutely cutting down the entire federal bureaucracy and restocking it with the folks from Project 2025.
Larry, on that note, and we're going to come back to that when we come back from break, but we're going to take a quick break here. But I want to dive into that a little more, and I also want to dive into some of these polls that came out on Thursday and Friday, showing this race tightening a little bit.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most private assets, silver and gold.
Call Kirk Elliott, PhD at 877-547-5743. That's 877-KIRK-PhD.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to talk about a limited time offer of subscriptions to Patriot.tv and how you can become a member of our Patriot Defenders subscription club and become a member of Patriot.tv. Really, it's America's network. I call it the home of truth. And you can do that for only $9.99 a month. It's a great deal by itself, but what I'm going to walk you through here in these next few seconds is a couple of package deals that we have that are unbelievable. The next membership was the annual membership at $99 that you can save. Right away, you save $20 if you come in at the annual subscription rate. The best deal that I think that people ought to seriously consider is the 2-year membership at $159. And it includes a special edition of my recently released documentary, Flynn, Deliver the Truth, Whatever the Cost. So along with the 2-year membership, the 2-year subscription will send you a DVD combo of the film, plus an option to stream the movie online, as well as exclusive interviews of Tucker Carlson, Devin Nunes, and myself. So go to the home of truth, right? Go to Patriot.tv today, sign up, seriously consider the 2-year subscription rate. It's an unbelievable savings. I think it's a total savings of about $70 from just signing up on a monthly or a annual basis. So thank you very much for your support. Patriot.tv is America's new network. Thank you.
And we're back. Larry, you had mentioned about the Heritage Foundation project, and I can sort of correlate to what Donald Trump did with his Supreme Court picks, which turned out to be tremendous with the Federalist Society, a group of conservative lawyers, Leonard Leo, and we came out with 3 pretty damn good Supreme Court justices. So although the Democrats have really been pounding that.
Books still out on Amy Coney Barrett, so.
Well, possibly. But overall, I think for the most part, I think most Republicans are pretty happy with how things have turned out. But let me ask you this: diving into some of these, I want to ask you about some of these poll numbers. Some of them are a little concerning because after the debate debacle, the Stephanopoulos debacle, Trump had opened up a lead 3.5 points. That's a big deal, folks, because at this same point back in the last election, Biden was up by like 9. So it's 12-point swing, Larry. Are you concerned at all by some of these recent polls that came out Thursday and Friday that basically showed the race, in one case tied, and in another case on a Marist poll, Biden up by 2? I got a lot of issues with it, but any concern at all about polling given the disastrous debate Biden had and calls for all these Democrats to have him out of the race?
It is a wonderful miracle of God that the race is tightening now, because it's going to bolster Biden's sales. It's going to give him ammunition to tell the other people that are trying to push him out, hey, look, I'm tied now. We're getting better. People like my debate performance. What are you talking about? Hey, look, here's what I think might have happened, because of course they poll a lot of they usually oversample Democrats anyway, but when they do poll conservatives, we don't tell the truth to mainstream media pollsters. A lot of times, conservatives will be like, yeah, vote for Biden. Yeah. And then they get off the phone, they laugh about it. Well, now knowing that a good Biden poll is going to keep him in the race, Republicans are smart. They're like, hey, if we say we're going to vote for Biden and maybe his numbers go up, they'll keep him in the race and we'll be able to slaughter him on Election Day.
I had a problem with that Marist poll that came out on Friday because they're basically saying Biden's up by 2, 50-48 with 2% undecided. There's the problem with that poll is we have 3 other candidates that are going to be in this race. They can poll all they want and say Biden, Trump. And again, if you look at the Real Clear Politics average and listen to both Democratic pollsters and Republican pollsters, Trump's got a lead somewhere 2 to 3 points. And Larry, you and I both know that a Trump lead of 2 or 3 points would translate into an electoral landslide based upon just how those numbers would work. But when you factor in Kennedy, who's going to poll 4 or 5%, I don't see how he can come in lower than that. Some people argue he takes away from both candidates equally. But I'll tell you, 2 candidates that did get, one of them got votes in the last election, and she will get votes again, is Jill Stein. And the other is Cornel West. And people laugh, oh, Mark, they're not going to be a factor. I tend to disagree. Because if West or Stein, let's say they poll 1%, Larry, then doesn't that give Donald Trump, and I've seen evidence in the polling piece, doesn't his lead widen when all 5 candidates are being discussed by pollsters?
Well, they do, absolutely. And look, here's the crazy part. Is regardless if they replace Biden or they don't replace Biden, the Democratic Party still has a Robert Kennedy issue, and if the Democratic Party, I hope nobody's listening. If you're listening and you're a Democrat, turn off the TV. Sorry about that. But here's the thing: if the Democrats were really smart, they would go to the convention and rally behind Robert Kennedy. They would rally behind Robert Kennedy. They'd bring Robert Kennedy back into the Democratic Party. They would say, Joe Biden was trash for not giving you Secret Service. We apologize. And we want you as our nominee, and Kamala can be your vice president. And if they kiss and make up, now they eliminate the Robert Kennedy problem, and it becomes a race. And again, he's a Kennedy. So the Democrats, all they have to do is say, look, Robert Kennedy is a real candidate, and all of a sudden, if the Democratic Party gets behind him, he'll pick up the Biden voters, and he'll have his voters, and it'll actually be a race. So that is one thing that does concern me slightly. However, I don't think the Democrats are either that smart or can get their stuff together to kind of close that loop. But you're right. Robert Kennedy is a real problem for the Democrats, as are the two other candidates, especially when you put them all together. And
yeah, I mean,
it's
they're going to be on the ballot.
It's probably the only way the Democrats actually have a shot.
Let me throw this crazy idea out to you. Okay, if the higher ups in the Democratic Party can force Joe Biden out, or they say, hey, Joe, here's a boat full of money that, this major donor is going to give you if you step aside, and your families don't have to be worried about it anymore. We'll take care of the Hunter situation, and either graciously steps aside or they force him out, okay, which is, would be difficult. Now you have Harris as the nominee. Let me take your idea and just shift that ticket around. What if it was a Harris Kennedy ticket? Do they still come back into the fold?
I think they could. If you combine those two tickets, it's a problem for Republicans, because now there's not a split ballot. Now, I still think Trump wins. Don't get me wrong. I think Trump has the wind behind the sails. I think Trump wins, but I think it gives the Democrats it gets them closer to the point where they can cheat and make it look believable, and that's concerning. So that is probably my only real concern. I saw a Washington Examiner piece the other day where they floated out the idea that Barack Obama can become Joe Biden's vice president, and then with the understanding that Biden would retire and Barack Obama would assume the presidency again. Now you say that can't happen. Well, the Constitution is actually on their side in this one, I think, because if Barack Obama becomes the president from the vice president being elevated to president, he's not elected president. He's elected vice president. So the Constitution says you can only be elected 2 times. It doesn't say anything about serving more than 2 times.
Interesting theory. Yeah. Well, one thing that's really come out of this, Larry, is friends that Joe Biden thought he had, Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi. I can see the knives out from both of those people, and we're not even Democrats. But, this doesn't, the things that we're talking about here, plus just the sheer drip, 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 drip. This doesn't happen by accident in Washington, D.C. Larry, you and I have been around it long enough. Somebody is calling the shots here about all these congressmen that come out. They're allowing them to. You see the feedback, how Pelosi has changed her tune dramatically. Barack Obama is trying to stay in the back, but it's really almost impossible for him to do that. And I got to tell you something. Biden, just off his performance, people don't think he has the mental acumen to be able to be president. But some of that, Larry, is being offset by they don't think Trump has the character. But I got a feeling when it really boils down to, at the end of the day, people will not forget what happened in that debate. The 51 million or so that watched it initially, and countless millions that have seen the clips of it since. I mean, I think it's one of those cases, Larry, where it's etched in their mind. And I think that's the reason why, regardless of what these polls say, the true indication of whether the polls are right or wrong is by the velocity of how many Democrats come out and want to get rid of Biden. Larry, is that theory that I'm throwing out there making sense, or am I missing something here?
It does. They definitely want him out. I mean, there's no question. CNN literally is wall to wall with coverage about how Biden should leave. But the thing is Biden's whole presidency, he has come out and said things like, well, I'm going to get in trouble. Well, I shouldn't do this because they told me not to. You remember the bunny that was following around during the Easter egg roll? You know, he's been minded his whole presidency, and it seems to me that he's done with that. That he is going to do things his way. He is going to go out his way. I think, you know, you mentioned pay him a boatload of cash. Well, first of all, you know, there's an old saying, you know, someone Biden's age, they don't buy green bananas. You know, the money's not going to help him improve his life from here on in. And he doesn't really care much about his family. Forget about all the photos of him hugging his son. He sent his drug addict son out to China, you know, to get co-opted when he was a drug addict. So you can't send your son as a bag man to these evil places and be a good father. So he doesn't care about that. So he doesn't need the money. He doesn't care about his family. I think he's just going to stick it to him.
So you could be right about that. I mean, you know, I've talked about this on other shows. I do believe he has dementia at some stage. Some doctors have come on and said he has Parkinson's. I'm not a medical doctor, can't comment on that. But I do know one thing: he is an incredibly stubborn human being. And if you take what you just said, Larry, and combine that, that could be a toxic situation. But yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to take our final break. But when we come back, we're going to really dive in, get beyond these numbers. We've talked Biden, we've talked Trump, and we're going to give you some closing thoughts as we head into the Republican National Convention, what's going to happen, and what will happen on the Democratic side too. So stick with us.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most private assets, silver and gold.
Call Kirk Elliott, PhD at 877-547-5743. That's 877-KIRK-PhD.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to talk about a limited time offer of subscriptions to Patriot.tv and how you can become a member of our Patriot Defenders subscription club and become a member of Patriot.tv. Really, it's America's network. I call it the home of truth. And you can do that for only $9.99 a month. It's a great deal by itself, but what I'm going to walk you through here in these next few seconds is a couple of package deals that we have that are unbelievable. The next membership was the annual membership at $99 that you can save. Right away, you save $20 if you come in at the annual subscription rate. The best deal that I think that people ought to seriously consider is the 2-year membership at $159. And it includes a special edition of my recently released documentary, Flynn, Deliver the Truth, Whatever the Cost. So along with the 2-year membership, the 2-year subscription will send you a DVD combo of the film, plus an option to stream the movie online, as well as exclusive interviews of Tucker Carlson, Devin Nunes, and myself. So go to the home of truth, right? Go to Patriot.tv today, sign up, seriously consider the 2-year subscription rate. It's an unbelievable savings. I think it's a total savings of about $70 from just signing up on a monthly or a annual basis. So thank you very much for your support. Patriot.tv is America's new network. Thank you.
Thank you, General Flynn, for all your support of Patriot.tv. And become a Patriot Defender, folks. It'll be a great, great, great way to participate in Patriot.tv. Hey, Larry, fear is a great motivator. And I'm seeing really, what was that old movie, The Smell of Fear? You think it's because these senators and congressmen are looking at these down ballot polls and saying, oh, Lucy, we got a problem. I mean, what's happening? You're close to these Senate races and House races. It looks to me like the Republicans are going to retake the Senate just based upon polling in West Virginia and Montana, but they could pick up a whole lot more seats. Larry, is it the down ballot self-interest that's causing a lot of these Democrats the stomach acid that they're putting out on CNN and MSNBC?
Yeah, probably. I think it's more of the Democrats operate like the Borg. They operate of one mind, and now one of the minds is absolutely lost his mind. That's Joe Biden, and the rest of them are attacking him. It's literally almost like Star Trek's Borg, and that's really what's happening. Is the mainstream media and the Democrats have decided, hey, look, we're the machine. We're telling you to get out. And Biden's like, why are you telling me? I don't understand what you're even talking about. So it's a really odd dynamic. But so I don't necessarily know that it's the down ballot pressure, although that is, I'm sure, a concern. It's just this how they operate. They operate as one.
Well, they've done that throughout his entire presidency. I mean, I've said this on many shows, Larry. That people talk about, well, he's a liberal Democrat or he's a conservative Democrat. 97% of the time, every Democrat votes a straight ticket. They're not like us, where unfortunately, you called us at one point the stupid party. We have debates and we have different factions, but the Democrats, they fall in line. And that's what's so unusual about this situation we're having right now. This drip, drip, drip every day, a different media figure, a different donor class, a different congressman, a different senator are coming out against a sitting president that, oh, by the way, is polling within the margin of error of Donald Trump. So they've got information at their fingertips that we've been, quote, saying for the better part of his entire presidency. And I've just got to believe that, this is not going to end well for him. But at the end of the day, Larry, he's probably sitting here, to use your analogy, he's 81. He's fairly well off. Yeah, he'll fix the Hunter Biden situation. But this guy's legacy is very important to him. And, you hear all these Democrats blowing smoke up his ass saying, well, do it for the good of the country, Joe. And, your legacy will be intact. You'll be considered a great president. And I'm saying that's all hogwash. They just don't want this guy at the top of the ticket because they're afraid they're going to lose all these down ballot races. And we're going to have then the fear is Donald Trump is president, a Republican Senate, a Republican House. Larry, that would be a glorious outcome from our perspective.
Absolutely. Look, I have a good friend, Dr. Larry Hunter. He's an economist. He wrote the Contract with America and ran at one point the Social Security Institute, nonprofit for seniors. And he would always tell me, and I'd laugh when he said it. He'd say, don't be afraid of the guys crossing the border from the Middle East. So those aren't the ones. I mean, yeah, sure, they'll do some damage. Those aren't the ones you really need to worry about. You need to worry about the old people when they get pissed off at the government because they got nothing to lose. And that's where Biden is. He is that crazy lunatic who's got nothing to lose and is willing to burn it all down for the Democrats. And it is glorious. It is the best thing that could happen to this campaign. It's the best thing to happen to this country is watching this thing implode. Meanwhile, while they're trying to subvert democracy, Biden's out there trying to say Trump's the threat to democracy. And the American people are seeing this. They're seeing this with their own eyes.
Yes, yes, they are. Well, Larry, you mentioned, what he's sitting here at a 39% approval rating, up 2 points from before the NATO summit, but still in a territory that I call it Jimmy Carter territory, because as many media pundits have said, no sitting president with these approval ratings has ever won re-election. So, Larry, we've bandied about it all throughout the show, but is there something that literally would force him or would get him? What would it take to get Joe Biden to agree to step aside, as so many Democrats are privately saying? Is there anything?
Well, we went through all the different scenarios, right? There's one missing. We went through so he could step down, he could resign. They could get rid of him at the, with the delegates at the convention. They could 25th Amendment him. There is one other option that they can do. We know the Democrats have done it to a former president named Kennedy. And and I'll just say this: I wouldn't want to be Biden's food taster or cupbearer at this moment, because quite frankly, I don't put that. Look, if Joe Biden doesn't make it to the convention physically, then it would not surprise me.
Yeah, I obviously could happen, but we hope like something like that, is not in the cards. All right, let's shift back to Donald Trump because, Larry, you've raised a lot of money. Let's talk about Trump's fundraising. He's got some big donors, and I'm talking Sheldon Adelson's widow. I mean, she's talking about putting 50 to 100 million into a Trump advertising campaign once this convention's over. And I hear the Democrats talking about the money that's been raised for, their party prior to when some of these funds got put on hold, as we talked about earlier in the program. But Republicans, Trump has been outraising Joe Biden. He's getting ready to have a great convention. You're a professional in this business. Talk about what the Trump campaign must be thinking, having their group of wealthy donors and that grassroots army that literally supports Donald Trump.
There's a lot of people that do business in New York. A lot of wealthy people do business in New York, have offices in New York, have real estate offices in New York. And those donors that watched the New York justice system or injustice system convict an innocent man because of politics, that freaked out the donor class in ways that the Democrats could have not have predicted. There were so many people. You got like Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, coming on television and saying, "Don't do business in New York because it's now there's a risk you will get arrested, you will be prosecuted if you say the wrong thing, if you do the wrong thing, if you donate to the wrong candidate, if you're on the wrong team. They'll take your business enterprise. Don't forget the $100 million they took from, or $1 billion. What did they basically shut down the Trump business in the case for the record. So there are people who have a lot of money, who have a lot of interests to protect, and see the way that the justice system has been weaponized against Trump, and they're just looking at it and say, could that be me? And I better get off the sideline and forget all my other issues and back Trump so he can make sure that this never happens again.
Yeah, and that's a big deal too, because a lot of injustice done. Heck, Cuomo, not Chris Cuomo, his brother, that was the governor of New York, even came out and said, if this guy was not running for president and didn't have the name Trump, this case never would have been brought. But the lawfare, it is so ironic here. I mean, this is the poetic justice, Larry, and what we're seeing here. The lawfare used against Trump, okay, is backfiring. Trump's approval rating went up when they did this. And then you have a situation where House Republicans, led by the Speaker, are trying to get HERS report. Remember the one that said Joe Biden is too old and senile to be prosecuted? And everybody was like, well, no, he's not old. He's not senile. And, Joe Scarborough was talking about how great the guy is, and Lawrence O'Donnell and all these people were singing his praises. And then all of a sudden, the debate lays that bare that, hey, this was all a charade. It was all false. And it's almost like I'm looking at this, Larry, saying poetic justice is finally out of the bag. And the stuff that the Democrats have been accusing Republicans of forever that you've referenced, it's coming back to backfire against them.
Absolutely. Look, nobody's talking about cheap fakes anymore, right?
No.
The whole cheap fake narrative went away real quick right after the debate. But the HER was verified. We don't need to hear the HER case unless there's something else in it that he let spill that would give the Republicans more ammunition. Merrick Garland should just turn it over at this point and say, "Yeah, I agree. The guy's completely incoherent during this thing. Yeah, here, have at it." Because and don't be surprised if Merrick Garland doesn't now capitulate to Congress, Don't be surprised if Merrick Garland doesn't turn over that tape unless there's something else that Merrick Garland doesn't want him to hear, or the Democratic powers that be don't want out. So the Hurt tape is moot at this point, right? Everybody has seen it. The mainstream media has acknowledged it. He's too old to run for office. He's too old to be president. He's too old to do really anything. He's not too old, but he's too he's
the
too
mental
gone, too
capacity
far
was
gone.
just not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of look. Here's a dirty little secret, folks, and Democrats don't want to talk about this. Nancy Pelosi's 85. I don't think many people are accusing her of losing her mental acuity. Jim Clyburn's 85. Jim Clyburn speaks like he's a 50-year-old man. Steny Hoyer, he's 84. So, you've got this octogenarian set of Democrats who are leading Democrats, and it's hard to sort of back Joe Biden when the cognitive issues are there, and yet the three people I just mentioned, Larry, solid as a rock from a Democratic perspective. Got 1 minute left. Close it out for us here on what how things are going to play out this week.
Well, exactly like you said, Dianne Feinstein, they let her die in office, right? And she was really far gone. So look, the way things are going to play out here, it's pretty clear. It's in Joe Biden's hands. I have absolutely trying to predict someone who has that type of dementia is a fool's errand. I'm not going to predict what's going to happen, but it's in Joe Biden's control. And my hope is he uses these polls to justify staying in the race. Don't go, Joe. Hold the line. Stay president for 6 more months, and then we will be done with you and the Democrats maybe for decades. So that is the most important thing we can do, is keep Joe in the race.
Larry Ward, thank you for being my guest today. It's been a pleasure having you on. Your insight is invaluable. We hope you'll come back. That's it, folks. We'll see you next weekend. Stay with Patriot TV. Thanks for viewing.